NFL free agency. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have not come to an agreement. Do you guys think he's staying there, or do you think he's leaving? And if he leaves, where would he go?
This one's a tough one.
So
I feel like they almost have to.
I feel like you have to. It's Lamar Jackson.
It's
he's
an
a top
MVP caliber player.
top 7
And
quarterback.
your fan base would revolt if the face of your franchise doesn't.
But the thing is also, if you're going to bring back Lamar, they need more weapons on offense.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't have any receivers.
Absolutely. You should be building your team around him.
Exactly.
He's your star. He's your franchise player. Build around him. If you can't commit to him, then what are you doing? Like, you have to commit to a franchise player. It's like how we talked about at the beginning when we started this whole thing, when we talked about it on the first episode, that the Red Sox had to commit to Rafael Devers, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens have to do the same thing with Lamar Jackson because that's the face of their franchise. And if they don't, I feel like they're going to have a lot of at least unrest in their fan base, and I don't know if it'll drop sales or anything, but certainly like a lot of people have bought Lamar Jackson jerseys in the last few years, and no one wants to buy a jersey and then 2 years or 3 years later the player's gone.
Right. I mean, it's honestly the nature of the business now and anything. But with Lamar, they can franchise tag him, I believe, for 2 or 3 years in a row. So that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna franchise tag him, and he's gonna make. So how the franchise tag works, if you don't know, is they take the average of the top 5 players or the top 5 paid players at that position. So he'll be making upwards of 40 plus a year.
Right.
And again,
it's certainly worth that.
I mean, I understand it from Baltimore's perspective. Baltimore's going to say, you haven't been on the field the last 2 years when we needed you and hurt at the end of the year. But
True.
Lamar's also got the thing where he can say, you use me all the time. I did the work in the offseason to get bigger, to get physically stronger to prevent injuries. And you still run him. You still run him too much.
If he had weapons around him, they wouldn't have to run him as much, and that wouldn't be a problem. He would be on the field all the time.
And he's still such a good player when he's on the field.
He is. He's very talented. He's very talented. And a lot of people will say, he's not a great thrower of the football. I think he's fine.
He can throw.
I've seen a lot worse. I wouldn't say he's okay, but he's a lot better than what people give him credit for. I'm telling you right now, he throws a better deep ball than Mac Jones does. I'll tell you that right now.
It's the people around him. Like, you have Mark Andrews, right? One of the better tight ends in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put Travis Kelce in a category of his own. But then outside of that,
Kittle. Don't forget about George Kittle.
And George Kittle. But then outside of that, I'd say Mark Andrews is certainly in the top 5, if not the top 3
Absolutely.
tight ends in the league.
I'd say top 3.
So, you have a big weapon there, but then, your biggest weapon is
you got Rashad Bateman.
Stud.
Like
Good at Minnesota. Devin Duvernay. I mean, I like their running back core. I mean, I like
the running back core
J.K. Dobbins
is great. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards.
healthy.
J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are both
even
amazing.
2 years ago, they had issues staying healthy with their DBs. Like, they had 2 top 5 DBs in that, Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters.
Yeah.
And they got hurt. They couldn't stand.
And they have a great running scheme. They use a fullback still. Pat Ricard, shout out Pat Ricard, UMaine product.
But if they had the passing game to complement that running game, can you imagine? They would be.
But they just don't have. They don't have cap. They don't have cap. They just don't have cap space to do it. They already signed Roquan Smith, and Roquan Smith is great. But I would not pay a linebacker that much money. Okay.
Especially when I feel like that's not even the biggest hole in your team. For the Ravens.
Well, not even that, but that's a position that Harbaugh is so good with the special teams and defensively that I think you could fill that position. They've had so many great guys there: Matthew Judon, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed. Think of all those great defenders that have played there. Haloti Ngata, just the list goes on. Calais Campbell. I mean, you can name endless names there. So they're good at developing defensive talent. Look at them when Flacco was there. When they were good, they had good receivers. Anquan Bolden, Torrey Smith, when they went on that Super Bowl run.
Yep.
So I think they need at least a weapon that can separate. And they're probably not going to get it just because of the pure fact that cap space and
they could trade for it.
Yeah, but again, you got to have cap and you got to have a deal that's enticing. And I think they're going to have a hard time.
If they traded a big player, to take some cap space away, or like not a big player, but like a sizable player. You know what I'm saying?
Who would you trade though? Would you trade Marlon Humphrey? I wouldn't trade Marlon Humphrey. I wouldn't trade a corner.
Is it Patrick Queen? Is that his name?
Yep. I wouldn't
I
trade
would
for a
give him
linebacker though like that, or an edge rusher.
I think the Ravens have to resign Lamar though.
To a long-term deal though, to 4 or 5 years, you're going to commit to a guy who gets hurt and runs a lot to 4 or 5 years. I know he's very talented.
But
He's
his
the
legs.
face of your franchise. I mean, you almost have to. What do you mean that? Who else is the face of the franchise?
I'm not saying he is the face of the franchise, but you have to look at it. I mean, you got to keep him, but also you have to look at the landscape of the AFC. I feel like they're going to be in the phase like the Patriots are kind of in Miami, where they're just going to be the 4th, 5th, 6th best team. They're not going to beat Kansas City. They're not going to beat the Bengals.
The Bills.
And they're not going to beat the Bills. They're going to compete with the teams like the Chargers, the Jags. So you got to ask yourself, can we get better? And I don't think you can get better at quarterback right now, so you keep Lamar.
Right.
But there's no way I'm signing Lamar to 4 or 5 years. Just look at Just look at the history of running quarterbacks in the NFL, and you can see that he's almost at the end. He's almost done. Michael Vick was good for 9-10 years. You know, he played a good 9-10 years. Lamar can play another one, maybe good, I think 4 or 5, and then he will have to become a pocket guy. So that's just the way it is. That's the nature of the NFL. Maybe he can last longer with the new safety rules and stuff that we've been implementing in the last decade. But I mean, he's great. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't commit to him long term.
One tackle to the knee, bro. It's like,
Yeah,
You can say that about any quarterback.
yeah, but he's running the special.
right. But you could say that about
There
any.
are other running quarterbacks in the league, Jalen Hurts.
Not to the
Not
degree
to the
that
degree of
Lamar.
But Jalen Hurts has the weapons around him that he doesn't have to run all the time.
Exactly.
Lamar
That's why
doesn't.
was successful.
But if you get Lamar those weapons, then that problem goes away. You don't.
The
have
thing
to
is, how are
use
you
it.
going to get him those weapons?
There are no receivers on the market. There's T. Higgins. T. Higgins not going to go to Baltimore.
What, Jacoby Myers?
Jacoby Myers.
No, Jacoby Myers wouldn't make a difference. Like I like Jacoby Myers, but no, he wouldn't make a
Okay,
difference.
Pats man. Hating on your own team.
No, I'm not hating on my own team. He's a fine receiver, but he's not like a.
He's an Eagles
fine.
fan. He's an
He's
Eagles
not-
fan. He's
he's-
fine.
He's not a
Wait,
number one.
He's
receiver.
obviously not good at lateral in the football. He's obviously not
He-
situationally aware at the end of the
What do you
game.
mean he's fine? What do you mean
Well,
by that?
like he's a fine receiver. He's a.
He's a fine receiver.
No. I mean talent wise, you guys know that. Come on now.
All right. Next.
All right. Do we want to talk about Brock Purdy and Trey Lance?
Sure.
Sure.
I don't know.
You keep them both. Trey Lance is going to be your starter, I would say.
I'd say you start Brock Purdy. But
Why?
I mean, he took you on an incredible run. I feel
He did, or the defense, or the system that Shanahan had.
System.
I mean, they always had a good system. I feel like
I mean, Jimmy
It's-
Garoppolo got them to the
Jimmy Garoppolo got
Yeah,
him to the Super Bowl. He
it's a-
should have won that Super Bowl. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes for 3
it's a
quarters.
system
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
designed to help quarterbacks.
Quarterback-friendly system. It's the same system where Matt Ryan was successful in Atlanta. Shanahan was also, I want to say, in Washington when RG3 was there, when Kirk Cousins was there.
They both
So
were successful.
Okay, so if you're starting Trey Lance,
you drafted Trey, you traded up. You have to remember, you traded to get him. You traded up to get him.
so so let's say you keep Trey Lance as a starter, then do you trade Brock Purdy because his value is high right now?
No, I think you keep.
I think you keep him if Trey Lance gets hurt.
Because you're not keeping Jimmy. You already
Or if
said
Trey
you're not
Lance
keeping
isn't
Jimmy.
performing, then you put Brock.
It's a good thing to have. Having two good. I
It's
mean,
a good problem to have. That's
it's
true.
a good problem to have. But the other thing is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you really have no quarterbacks. So that's the other saying in the NFL. You
Yeah.
know, you want to have one really good guy.
Yeah.
And we got to see with Trey, right? Because he only played, how many games did he play this year? Like, what, 2, 3?
Was it like week 4? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was like week 2. Let me look that
There
up.
hasn't been like
I'm pretty sure it
that-
was week 2.
And again, we haven't seen him play a lot because you remember
Yeah.
he didn't, the year going into the draft, he didn't play at North Dakota. Was it North Dakota or something?
there's North Dakota State.
North Dakota State. And he didn't play his rookie year, obviously. And then now you got him playing he's not a great thrower of the football, not accurate yet, and that's a big problem with quarterbacks. Is usually they can't learn accuracy.
Right, and
Week 2, he was hurt.
Week 2, right?
That was right.
Because he struggled that first game. Now again, the Bears game was like a monsoon. Like his first game was just pouring rain.
yeah,
So like you can't really judge him off that, I don't think.
Yeah.
But again, like I was saying with Lance, you can't really teach accuracy to guys. One guy you could like point to that got more accurate was Josh Allen. It was something
True.
he struggled with at Wyoming. But yeah, it depends. I think you go with Lance. I just think from a standpoint of John Lynch and Shanahan, you committed to this guy and you took an early draft pick with
You
him.
just got to give him a chance.
Yeah.
but if it doesn't work out, you always have that option. That's a very solid option to go to. Okay, are we going to do early predictions of the AFC and NFC next season, or do we want to save that for like a later time?
Just say the Chiefs and the Eagles.
Just ended.
Say listen time.
Yeah, well, I need to see what happens in free agency. And well, I guess we could say what we think the quarterbacks are going to do. Carr, Rodgers.
Well, we already kind of talked about that last podcast.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good team.